Wemby has taken a huge leap forward in his development. We played the sound of Brian Windhorst earlier this week saying Wemby's ahead of schedule, which means, hey, man, the Spurs may be ahead of schedule in this rebuild. He's starting to turn some heads, and I've been on the record saying I think he could win Defensive Player of the Year in his first year. I got mocked, ridiculed, and laughed at, but now it's actually becoming a serious topic of conversation. And one of the best defenders in the NBA, Draymond Green, now is on the bandwagon with me. Here's Draymond Green talking about Wemby for Defensive Player of the Year.
By the way, I know I said on here a little while back, Wemby shouldn't be the Defensive Player of the Year, and I lied. Wemby should be the Defensive Player of the Year because he is that amazing defensively. The way he impacts the game on the defensive end, whether it's off the ball, on the ball, it's a problem. When you start driving to the hole and like guys may have a layup, maybe not, and they just turn out and go the other way, that's a problem. And that's a block shot in a sense, and no one will account for that. It's like a screen. You go set it a screen, no one's going to give you an assist, but the guy's wide open to knock a shot down. You drive into the lane and get a layup and you see Wemby and you just go the other way, that's a block shot. I don't know what lab he was created in, but I need to go create me a son in that lab because dude is unbelievable.
All right, there you go. All right, what say you, Patrick? As now I got Draymond Green is on the bandwagon, so that's a fit. Now I got somebody official on the defense, Wemby for Defensive Player of the Year. What say you? I love what he said about basically the deterrent shots. That basically he will get players just turn around, and I've seen that before. I've actually seen that watching Wemby play.
Spurs fans and Spurs people are starting to cut up those highlights because they're not stats, and they were like, there needs to be a stat for the times. There was a fast break where a guy turned around, threw the ball to another guy. He drove in and then turned around and passed the ball back out. And they never even really got close. They're just like, what's the point? He's standing there. He's standing there. It's done. But it's like, first of all, I will say I'm with you, but I've also been on the Wemby bandwagon. On Ball Don't Lie. I was talking about Wemby a year before they even got drafted.
Yes, very true.
It's
very
like,
true. Yeah, no
Spurs
doubt,
need to suck to get him.
Yes. What was your slogan?
Winless for Wembanyama.
Winless for Wembanyama. Yeah.
Yes, that was.
I remember you championing that for like a whole year. Yeah.
So we had that, but I think early in the year, it was some of the things that were people had questions about was, can he defend against bigger guys? Are guys like Jokic going to come in, or just even like a Valanciunas or a Steven Adams or guys like that who are maybe not even star players, but are bigger guys. Alperen Sengun had a good game against him. Embiid had a good game against him. Those guys if he gets put in situations where he's going to get back down, and can he just not defend a certain type of player? Well, that takes you kind of further off the Defensive Player of the Year board, because if there's certain types of players that can just dominate you, then you can have that. That was earlier in the year. That was happening more and more. And I think they've started to figure out ways around that more. I think he's started to figure out how to play it as he's grown into himself. He's figured out the way of, look, you can back up as close as you want to this basket. You still can't turn around and get elevation while you're connected to me to get over my hands. Yeah. So all I have to do is basically stand straight up and down with my hands right in front of the basket, and it still makes this an extremely hard shot. And so I think he's found better and better ways to do that. They've been able to use Sohan as a guy to use some body, have him on the weak side to help out so he can come over and get some blocks. And basically, even if you think you made a great move on Sohan, you are now turning around to see the 7'5" guy trying to block your shot. The ball, you didn't expect people to have body control, even with his size. The body control you expected early in the season, and he was picking up more fouls early in the season to start to control the foul trouble. Because if you're constantly playing against big guys and constantly banging the post, that those hands will come down a little bit more. When you're trying to block shots, you will make too much contact. But he's being able to get a little separation because of his size and athleticism and still be able to get those blocks. So there's been pieces of it throughout the season that he's improved against. But I think early in the season when he was playing a 3-4 kind of hybrid and they weren't playing him at that 5 position, he wasn't Defensive Player of the Year. He wasn't Rookie of the Year, because that wasn't where he really should have been. It wasn't the best lineup of the Spurs on the court. It messed up the spacing defensively and offensively with Zach Collins on the court and Jeremy Sohan, and it just didn't work. So that was part of the reason why early in the season, if you watch the Spurs, you said, well, he's not the best because we don't even know what he is. And in the second half of the season, post All-Star break, when they've said he is a 5, this is what we're doing, there is a game plan for the Spurs right now. He has just looked like a much different player defensively. He's in better position. He knows what his role is defensively, and everyone else on the team knows what their role is now. And so it just changed everything dramatically defensively. Now, the issue is when he walks off the court, nobody knows what their role is anymore, and that defense starts to suffer immensely. But while he's on the court, everybody knows what they're doing. In the first half of the season, so the conversations changed because, again, Chet Holmgren was a Rookie of the Year for at least a third of the season. He was just playing better. He was on a better team. Everything was going his way. By the time he got to the All-Star break, the momentum was shifting that Wemby was starting to come into it, and now it's not a discussion. Wemby is Rookie of the Year. And so that conversation had to shift in the second half of the season, but that was not only Wemby coming into his own, realizing what the league is. You know, he did not play college ball. He played overseas, which is a completely different game than playing which college ball is different than pros too. But over there, just the way he was being played, he didn't even play a ton of minutes. That's one of the reasons he left the Tony Parker team, was because he was not going to play a ton of minutes, and he wanted to get more time on the court. He had minutes restrictions early in the season because of his ankle injuries. There was all these pieces that meant early in the season he wasn't Defensive Player of the Year. But going into later, and how dominant he's been, and the ground he made up statistically, where it's just so hard to ignore what he has become. I think that if you look at it all, just that from the second half of the season on, he's hands down the Defensive Player of the Year. The question of why he may not get the votes is because the Spurs record is bad and because the first half of the season was questionable.
That's a great breakdown. And to your point, Brian Windhorst said, I understand. He's talking about Rudy Gobert and Wemby for Defensive Player of the Year. I understand Rudy is going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but my vote hasn't been decided. That's what I'm saying. Are we sure? And I'm saying I'm not sure. By the way, he had 9 blocks tonight against the Nuggets. So Brian Windhorst saying, I ain't sure. What I'm watching right now, because this guy like you kind of watches every game, and he's like, nah, I'm not sure anymore that he ain't Defensive Player of the Year. He might be. And that's why I think Draymond Green said earlier this year, to your point, he's not Defensive Player of the Year. And now he's walking that back and saying, yes, he is Defensive Player of the Year, because like you pointed out, he knows his role now. Yeah. Now everybody else knows what his role is defensively, and he is thriving in that role.